is I am a short, very short woman in her mid-40s with dark brown hair, and I am wearing a very bright blue and green and black blouse. So that's me. Right, so I'm going to talk today about our digital mindset part of our strategy at De Montfort University. But first of all, what does De Montfort look like? How's it composed? What's it made up of? So a few facts and figures. So we've got 30,000 students. About 22,000 of those are at our campus in Leicester. And the rest are at our campuses across the world. So we have a campus in Dubai, which we've just moved and doubled the size of, actually. So it will be taking thousands of more students quite soon. We also have a campus in Kazakhstan and Cambodia. And we are shortly opening it in Uzbekistan and London. So there we go. So we're all over the place. We've got quite a big turnover at £260 million. We probably won't all go into profit, given how things are in the university sector at the moment. And why did I join De Montfort? Well, really because of this strategy. So this is the overall Empowering University strategy. This is Katie, the Vice-Chancellor's strategy that she developed when she joined De Montfort 5 years ago. And it was really all about empowering our staff, our students, empowering our community around us for a fairer world and ensuring opportunity for our students. Because for us in De Montfort, nearly 50% of our home students are first in family to go to university. And we are also nearly 50% BAME as well. So we've got some characteristics that aren't typical. We also nearly 50%, we like the 50%. We also nearly 50% of our home students are commuters. So they live in Leicester, Leicestershire or Rutland, and they commute into university and then they go home. And many of them have a number of commitments. I've heard quite a bit this week about people that have jobs, and that's part of it, but they may have also other commitments, caring commitments, children. They're juggling a lot of different things, many of our students. My role was a new role that Katie created. She changed the Chief Operating Officer role into a transformation role. And it was a very digital remit. She wanted somebody who could come in, develop De Montfort's first digital transformation strategy to support the goals of the Empowering University. And my background was central government before that. I was previously CDIO in the UK Parliament, so digital is my background. But I came in and took a brief that was broader and wider. So I have IT, I have people, I have admissions and marketing, and I now have, there's been an evolution over the last 2.5 years, I have estates, I have admissions, and the latest is alumni. They've just come to join my cluster, as we call it. So I've got a number of things, the levers that you might need for people, process, and technology. So what is transformation? Well, I find this analogy pretty useful because actually a lot of transformation is evolution, really, although it can be quite a jump in evolution. So the iPhone is the ultimate example that probably people think it's a transformation, but it's not. It's just a really great evolution of a mobile phone. And we all probably remember when Nokia was king, and none of us could imagine not having a Nokia phone, not playing Snake. And then iPhone came along, blew it out of the water because it's like an amazing transformation. But it's not really a transformation. And that's why I like this quote, because when the snake sheds its skin, it changes. It fundamentally changes. But when a caterpillar becomes a butterfly, it has transformed. It is something different. And I think that's a useful analogy to think about, because actually, in many transformations, actually a lot of what you are doing is more the snake side of things. But maybe you need 10 or 15 or 20% that is the caterpillar becoming a butterfly. So when I arrived, the first thing I did was I wanted to understand the landscape of the university. I didn't want to come in and just buy lots of technology, which is what a lot of people thought I was going to do. And in fact, one of the things I found out was that we had plenty of technology. In fact, probably more than we needed. We managed to get rid of 100 things. We still have over 700 in this as a result of this discovery phase. But there were some really clear themes. We did focus groups across the university with our students. And there were really clear themes that came out about what the issues might be with us. And top of the list was change culture, ability to change, capability was really high up there, customer journey. Then we go into some more familiar territory things for the CIO, you know, program and project management, not very good. Process maturity, not very good. And systems and architecture. So it's sort of a 50-50 split there in the top things between probably what you might call people, mindset, and actually technology, or sort of traditional tools and PPM and process. So it all needed work, basically. what do we do next? So we wanted to develop the strategy based on those findings. And something that was really influential in this part of the strategy that I'm talking about today for me was we had an event that Katie led called Our University Day, which was sort of a 2-year anniversary of the Empowering University strategy and a chance for everybody in the university to come along, do different things, give feedback, understand parts of the strategy that were just being developed. And I had a stall at it, which was about digital transformation. And I put some personas up that we'd done and some feels-like statements. And we just asked people to write on a big piece of paper what they thought about it, what did they think. And probably the biggest piece of feedback was that people were scared and worried and didn't feel very confident. That was the biggest thing. And I spoke to loads of our staff. And there was a theme, really. They were all saying, we've been through COVID. Obviously, back then, it was 2022. It felt still quite close, relevant. We were thrown headlong into having to use Teams, having to do all these things. And we don't really even understand how to do any of that. So the last thing we want is you coming along and coming up with all sorts of other things that we need to do. We just want to get on with our job. And that was really influential in my strategy development, actually, and in what we focused on. The number one thing it told me is we had to define clearly for everybody what digital transformation was going to be at De Montfort, because, of course, it can actually be all sorts of different things. So this is the definition we went for. Probably I'd learned a little something by that point. I'd probably been there about 6 months at that point. And I went for an academic interpretation that had a citation. So people like that. But I did add one bit, which is why it says adapted from, because I added the word data. That's all I did. If you remove the word data, that's what it said in that academic paper. But I added the word data in because I thought, that's important, and I'm not sure we're recognizing that. So this is the sort of guiding star, as we were developing the strategy of what we're saying. You're asking me what it will be at De Montfort. This is what it is. It's about new educational and operating models. It fits in with the Empowering University strategy, which is all about that. And that's what we're going to work to, a new value proposition. So then we moved to having the strategy itself. And this is our strategy. It's still our strategy today. Our vision is data, technology, and digital that is fit for a leading, innovative, and empowering university. That's what we're saying we want to get to. And we've got 3 main objectives: digital working, digital mindset, change management. And today, I'm talking about digital mindset, the digital mindset working stream. We also had some principles, the how, that we shared with everybody. And this is our how we work. And you'll see that there are some words in red. And I've put them in red on purpose because, for 2 reasons. To show you that things don't stay the same, they change. Because we've had, the strategy was first agreed in November 2022, and we're now in 2025, right? And in the last year, something I've become really aware of, which is it's important to be critical of your own work. And actually, it was a gap in my understanding when I came, and it didn't come through, funnily enough, in that discovery, was the importance of digital inclusion. Not accessibility, but inclusion. So we actually spent quite a lot of the last year as a piece of work working with our students, some of our prospective students, to understand what do they need. And those words in red are changes that have been made to the main strategy to promote inclusion and put it front and centre. And our Board of Governors signed that off before Christmas. They're very supportive of that. So we've got an adaptive version. But back in 2022, the words in red weren't there, basically. But what we did do was we launched the strategy in a very different way to how De Montfort had operated before. So we launched it in what's called the VC Weekly newsletter. That wasn't a different way. That's Katie's newsletter that she writes every week, or sometimes one of us from the executive writes on her behalf. But the thing that was really different was we launched a microsite on the same day. And the microsite's open to students as well as staff. It's open to everybody. And it had a lot of data and information, and you could drill down into it and see the discovery reports and that type of thing if you're a data person. It had blog posts, and it's a live site today. We keep it updated. People blog on it. And that was really different. That signaled something different, not least because our SharePoint intranet site at that point was really old. So that was why it was a microsite. So people were like, wow, look at this. This doesn't look like our intranet site. But it was about that two-way dialogue was the point. And then I also, you're beginning to sense, I like an analogy. And the way underneath that strategy, the strategy is about 25 pages long, and you don't want to know, and I haven't got time. But this, I think, encapsulates how we went underneath those working group objectives, digital working, digital mindset, change management, into what the things underneath would be and look like. And those are split into foundational, optimizing, and transformational. And the whole work plan and program is split that way. And probably about 70% still now of what we're doing is foundational. So we've just put in a brand new network, foundational piece of work. We had a 12-year-old network, flat network, couldn't do lots of things. We're literally just about to finish our new network. Very important foundational piece of work. Then we've got optimizing, which is probably about 20%. Optimizing is broadly making the best of what we've got, improving what we have. We had an awful lot. That's what we discovered in the discovery. But we weren't necessarily using it very well or using it across faculties, and that's what that is. And transformational, genuine difference, genuine proposition. And the reason the houses are there is because the way that I explained that to staff groups, to the governors, etc., was saying, when you buy a house, if there is a pane of glass that is smashed when you've bought the house, you are going to replace it, and you're going to do it quite quickly. And that's probably a foundational piece of work. If it's got a 20-year-old kitchen, which is serviceable, but not your taste, you might get it refurbished, you might optimize, you might go down to Magnet or IKEA and buy, or actually Magnet, let's say, and buy yourself a new kitchen. However, if you know that in time, you are going to knock that kitchen out, bash through 7 walls, Kirsty Allsop style, build an extension, you're probably either not going to do any work to that kitchen at all, you're going to live with the dark cupboards and etc. Or maybe you'll go to IKEA, actually, because it's going to take you some years and you'll buy something cheaper. So that was me trying to explain to them some things we won't touch because we want to make big changes, but we've got to build up to that. Other things we will modernize. We'll be down Magnet, the IT equivalent of Magnet, and we'll be improving. And our app for students is a really good example of that, because when I arrived, people were saying, oh, our app for students is just dreadful. But the truth was that we had bought the app, we had thought that was what we needed to do. So for 3 years, we'd done no upgrades to it, absolutely nothing. So unsurprisingly, it didn't work very well. I think we were a number of versions behind. So the first thing that we did was deal with that. And then now, 2 years later, we're in the position where we're completely modernizing it and changing it, and we're doing sprints with students, and we're doing all sorts of different things. But we didn't leave it as it was, because it really wasn't fit for purpose. We did do that optimizing, that modernization piece of work. Just a few thoughts on what our approach should mean in practice. I keep on sharing these with all of my teams so that we remind ourselves of what we're trying to do. And that very top bullet is very relevant to what we're talking about today. Increase digital fluency as skills in our staff and students to enable them to make the most of current and future technologies. And back to that point of that, our university day, hundreds of colleagues in, we've got a big conference centre and it was in there. All of them, many of them, just looking terrified at what on earth I was going to unleash on them, just made me realise that actually that was far more important than some of the technological changes we were going to make. We needed to help colleagues to feel supported. And that's where this programme came in. Now, this would have been when I handed over to my colleague Mel Fowler, who in the programme is meant to be here today. She's our Executive Director of Communications and Marketing, and sadly she was too unwell to travel to Brighton, so you've got me. But if Mel had been here, Mel would have taken over at this point, because one of the things that I did, actually across all 3 working groups, but we're focusing on this one, was that I thought it was important for me to not lead it, because I felt if I did, people would think, well, of course she would say that it's important that we do this or we do that, because she's this digital person from government. Of course she would say that. So for all 3 groups, I had leaders who were not me. And for digital mindset, I asked Mel, who's a fellow, I'm on the executive board, Mel's on the executive board, I asked Mel if she would lead it. And when we were practicing for this session, she was telling me that she was really surprised that I asked her to lead it, because she said I didn't feel very digital, didn't feel very confident, didn't think I knew a lot about it, but she was up for it. And I asked her really for the reason that I thought it was important that there was somebody who wasn't seen as a digital expert in the lead. I asked her because I felt that communications and the marketing of this programme that I'm going to move into talking about was actually the most important part, because my ambition was not to just have a few people, but to have a lot of people becoming digital champions across our organisation. And that's the sales and marketing piece, to get people to want to do that effectively. And I thought Mel would have the right approach and the right attitude. She'd been at De Montfort a while. She was a known quantity, a respected colleague. So she's a good person to lead. And it fitted nicely, as you can see, with one of our values in action in our strategy around empowering people. So Mel felt empowered to own that work stream and to deliver it in the way that she thought was best. It wasn't what did I think. She obviously gets my input, but it was what did she think was best, what was going to work. We did some baseline work and testing to understand the position that we were in. So we did two different things. We did this one before we actually launched the programme, which is a capability for change survey, which we've done twice, and we'll be doing it again this year, so that we understood in the university how people felt about change. And you can see it's a bit mixed, is the answer. And our 2023 highlights were interesting and helpful to us in thinking about it. So not very high on people know change is coming, my organisation is fast at decision making, or the cumulative workload of multiple changes is tracked. So from that, in terms of this work stream, we were really clear that in order to be a champion, we would set out what we needed from you, what you would get, and we would have the buy-in of your manager of the time for you to do the 12-week training course. So that was really important. It wasn't just another thing. Our 2024 one had changed a bit. Our people know why we are changing became a really high result, so that was quite pleasing. I'm not saying that was entirely to do with this work stream. It's an organisational level thing. And changes prioritised became a top one. And people have time to adopt new ways of working. I can't prove it because in 2022 at our university day we didn't do this survey, but I don't think they would have said that then. We then defined digital mindset, and Mel led on creating this definition of digital mindset in order that everybody knew what we were doing. And we're really saying it's about helping people. It's about helping you in the journey that De Montfort is on to transformation, which we are saying is important to us as an organisation. It's about bringing you with us on the journey, developing your skills, developing your confidence. So it was very staff-focused to start off with. How do we do it? Well, one key thing was that we partnered with an organisation called Hable, who were here earlier in this week. Hable was some people I knew from government, and they're a sort of change and training and organisation around Microsoft 365 who are really people-centred. So I wasn't quite sure how we should deliver this programme, but I knew they had a people-centred approach and that was what we needed. So we partnered with Hable. And we also learned from other sectors. This is something called NHS Digital Hero. This is a really successful campaign done in the NHS, actually also with Hable, so I knew that they had experience, which was not just about their administrative staff, but was as much about their consultants and their nurses having the confidence to use the digital tools that the NHS wanted them to use. And that was a really inspiring and successful programme. And I thought if we could develop something like that, that would be interesting. And also, I don't know if he's here, but Kingston University, it's always good to copy, and Kingston University had actually already started on a Digital Champions programme themselves. And I remember the first GSISA I went to, which was in Liverpool in 2022, I spoke to Kingston about their programme and how it had gone for them. And I thought, yeah, I really like some of the aspects of what you've done there, and if it's all right, I'm going to copy them. And they were like, okay. So that was good. One thing that's really important to me is that evidential basis and then being able to track it, both so that we know that the interventions that we're making and the investments that we're making have a return, and also so that we can demonstrate that, especially to our board, who you know, are very on top of KPIs, KPTs, and those type of things. So we did a baseline digital fluency audit of the organisation. And that had over 600 people completed it. Every area of the university, every org unit of the university had at least one person completing it. That may sound pathetic, but we have some org units have like 3 people in them. Obviously, we have others that have hundreds of people. The strengths that came out of that audit was use of Microsoft Teams. Probably no great surprise, but kudos to our IT team in the way they supported people during the pandemic. And also willingness to try new things came out as a positive. There was a lot of willingness to try new things. The weakness areas were information management, people's understanding thereof, and automation, understanding of automation. And confidence was low. So that was a benchmark demonstration of what I had seen in our university day. 40% of respondents were at the lowest level of confidence about digital, 40%. And then 5% were at the highest level of confidence, so virtually nobody. That was where we started. There were 12 work areas. This is a very busy slide. But there were 12 work areas within that. And we took that data and we collated it by theme, using a sort of thing like most like me for people to understand on each theme. So there's all sorts in there: file management, accessibility. Basically, the more it's over to the left, the less confident I am. And the more it's over to the right, the more confident I am. So you can see that the confidence with file management, information management, collaboration, automation, and security, all very important things to all of us in this room, are all at the lowest. They've got the biggest proportion of people with low confidence in the organisation when we start doing this audit. So we knew there were, sunny upside, likely to be some really amazing opportunities through doing a 365 Champions programme to turn that around, because an awful lot of them were about those core 365 skills. There's another busy slide. I think that's actually just a different way of saying exactly the same thing. It shows you by bar chart, and you can see there, for instance, for file management in the bottom left, just how many people were not confident at all, and probably didn't know what they were meant to do, because we had sort of OneDrive, and we had pushed that out, but we haven't really told people how to use it, or when to use it, or why to use it. And we still had the S drive, so an awful lot of people were keeping things on their S drives. And I couldn't say in the first month how many people sent me attachments for me to comment on. I was thinking, why am I getting all of this? But it all builds a picture, doesn't it? People are not trying to be difficult. They just don't actually know the skills and the possibilities and the opportunities, because we hadn't translated it for them. We hadn't communicated it to them. So unsurprisingly, they were unaware of it. So what did we do? We tried to create a buzz. So we created a whole campaign around our desire to have a Digital Champions programme. It was called More, Get More Out of Digital, Be a More Digital Champion, and that's the branding of the campaign. We wanted to build a self-sustaining community of digital champions that would last for the long term. So we set out, I've said already, a proposition of what we would give people, and we were very open to anybody at any level of digital confidence coming and being part of the programme and receiving from Hable that 12 weeks of, not continuous, but 12 weeks of training every week. And we said, we will get you all to a particular level. It doesn't matter if you feel at the moment that you can't do it. In fact, that's quite good, because then you'll understand how people in your local area feel. And it's really a local area champions programme. We train you, you help people in your area. And one of the other really good things, because that representation matters, I think, and seeing leadership matters, is that not only did Mel lead this, but between her and me, we convinced 2 other members of the executive board, both academics, to become more digital champions, and they did the training programme. And we all had lanyards, and we had footers for our emails about being more digital champions. So it was very, very obvious that you were one. And we did a very big launch as well. So that's our launch event. We had over 200 champions at launch. We did have them from every area in the university, apart from one very tiny office where we didn't have a champion. But we had them everywhere: academic, professional services, also people that weren't primarily desk-based. So that was great. We did a 3-month programme with them, focusing on optimising their Office 365 skills and helping them with change leadership. So helping them help people who didn't even know that they wanted to ask a question. That's been a really interesting part of it and what Hable's delivered, that ability not just to reactive, Bob comes and says, I don't know how to save this file, but the proactive. We've had people do all sorts of little training sessions or going out or doing things, being very proud that they're a champion. And you can see at the end of the 3 months, we had a graduation celebration for our champions, and they all got a very snazzy pin badge that they all wear so people know that they are a more digital champion. What did it look like in practice? Well, this shows that what people went through from enrolment to graduation. It was a mix of things. So all online, partly because of the time, because this was still 2022, but to be honest, I think online worked best anyway, really. So we did workshops, there were webinars, and there was one-to-one coaching available for the putative champions as well. There's a mixture of app-based training, so training on Teams, training on SharePoint, and what Hable calls scenario-based training, which actually I thought was really, really, really great. So around a theme, like inclusion or accessibility, and with scenarios so that it's more real to people about how to engage with it. So that was the program that everybody went through. And what did we get as a result of it? We got a very happy graduating cohort of initial digital champions, and they went out into the organisation. We had a team site for them. They were very active on their team site, supporting each other. Obviously, people had different levels of what they were prepared to do, how they made it work. It's their thing, and that's actually okay. But I'll just share with you a few things that people have done. So this is one of our champions, Carla, who the big thing that she did was create a new SharePoint site for her team, for her entire team. As a result, she's the widening access manager. Before, all this data and information, they all had in their personal drives, they all had in different places, they didn't have it together. She created a SharePoint site where they have everything all together and they can all find the information that they need straight away. This is our health and safety team. So we have a champion in our health and safety team, and she went away and created, with some support from our internal digital skills team, created a Power BI dashboard around incident reporting for each of the faculties. Previously, faculties used to fill in Excel spreadsheets. They would send them to Charlotte. She would spend lots of time collating it and present it to our health and safety committee. She worked out that this would be a better way of doing it. She developed it. You can go into it, somewhat hilariously. When we actually had the annual leadership board discussion of health and safety, people spent more time talking about this Power BI dashboard and how excellent it was than we did talking about the health and safety issues the university had had. So that was pretty successful. And then we also had Kim, who's an academic in the School of Pharmacy, who took her knowledge of Power Automate and created an automated way to manage interviews that pharmacy has to do. So 3 completely different areas: widening participation, health and safety, and academic. So it just shows that it doesn't matter where you are in the university, actually honing your digital skills and then thinking about how to apply them in your area can work. But don't just take that from me. Let's hear from them.
Hello, I'm Carly Yergers. I manage the widening access team here at DMU. I'm one of the many digital champions working on a project following on from the training we received from Hable.
Hi, my name's Kim Fisher and I'm an academic in the School of Pharmacy and a more digital champion.
My name's Sarah Lawton and I'm an IPE coordinator for the HLS faculty.
I wanted to be a digital champion because I realised that I wasn't as good with technology as I thought I was. Especially with the move to learning online during lockdown. I realised that I wasn't using the facilities that we had.
The digital champion training helped because it gave me a starting point as to where things should be saved, how to collaborate with other people on Teams, and then I was able to build on that. Best thing I've learned is how to manage access for different files, which is really great because you can allow different people to edit or to view or to download, and you can change that at any point.
My digital project was to do with the interview process within the School of Pharmacy. All of our applicants are interviewed before they join the pharmacy programme. The old version uses Word documents that have to then be uploaded and attached to emails and sent to our admissions colleagues to process.
The project that we've put together was born out of a need from the service, needing the information to be all in one place. So we came up with a SharePoint site so the team can access the information that we all deal with on a daily basis. So as a result of using the SharePoint site, pulling all the information that we needed together in one space, it meant that the team worked far more effectively and efficiently. We deal with a lot of external and internal stakeholders, so it meant that the information that we were using was accessible and everybody was using the same information across the board.
The more digital training gave me the information that I needed with regards to SharePoint and what SharePoint was and how it worked. But I also needed some training from the digital skills team at DMU. So I undertook the Power Automate training After implementing the change, my colleagues now all use the MS form for interviews. We've had nearly 500 interviews completed that way this academic year. It's shortened the process and time for my admissions colleagues as well. All of the information is there in one place and they can easily access it.
There we go. So you've heard it from the horse's mouth there. Overall as well, obviously that's 3 of our digital champions out of the cohort of 200. But for the most part, everybody got something out of it. Everybody felt they had improved their skills and confidence. And you can see that here because that's the before and after the programme. So the left is before. And in effect, the more orange or red it is, the less confident they were feeling about different aspects. And the right is the after. The more blue we are, the more confident we are. And as you can see, that blue has really taken over. So it really delivered what we needed as a programme. It really did move people's dial of confidence across the university. That isn't the only thing that we've done as part of that digital mindset piece of work. It's been a really important plank of it. But the other thing that I just wanted to share with you is our DMU Digital Festival. So we've had 2 festivals now. We've just had our second one last November. We actually launched, that launch event for the Digital Champions was a side event of the first festival. And the idea of that is also to say to people, guess what? There's really good stuff going on across the university. People are doing really interesting things with digital across the university. Let's get together and celebrate that. And we've had 2 years of doing that. It's been absolutely amazing seeing what people have been doing. The one that I'm going to do this year, I want to bring in externals. So if anybody would love to come and be part of that, to share their story, I'd be really interested to hear. And we're also going to open it up to our students and our community. I'll come on to our students in a minute. But this is a few things. This was the festival that we did in the autumn. So we were showing off a new app that we've made over on the right-hand side that we're using at UCAS conferences, which is a quiz that lets people find out what type of course might suit them. VR headsets, which we're using that's part of actually some transformational stuff we're doing in our education and careers service. And we've got that amazing video wall in our conference centre, so we were showing what that could do as part of it. And yeah, there's some more. We don't do ordinary, as Alan from Fashion would tell you. So he's actually showing somebody how fashion lecturers are already using AI very heavily in their teaching because fashion is already using AI. And it's not just Balenciaga, Georgia Asda, who we work really closely with, they are using AI because it cuts costs. So we are having to adapt what we're doing. So just a little peek. That. So it's really great to be here at the second DMU Digital Festival. It's got the theme of Think, Grow, Create, and it's the chance for people from across the university to come and exhibit and share with others all the really exciting digital things they're doing, and also for us to learn from internal people, but also learn from our external speakers who are talking about topics like digital inclusion and the importance of digital in prisoner rehabilitation and everything in between.
Well, one of the first impressions I have in the time I've been working with DMU is just how switched on DMU is for its digital transformation and how it's completely at the heart of the university's strategy. And just looking around the exhibition, I can't get over how much of what a lot of people would think is about tomorrow is actually happening here today.
So digital inclusion has 3 pillars to it. Access, affordability and skills. We have 20% of the UK population who are not online at all. So it's really important for local authorities all across the UK and also central government that we make more people digitally included.
AI is going to be the future of creativity because we've always sought out a new way of creating and a new way of utilising tools. It's a 1,000-year-old process if you think about it. I get stimulated, I do research, I investigate a new technique, and then I go and apply it in a different way. That's what we'll always ask our students to do. And the industry are no different. They want to do things faster, cleaner, more productive. And AI is another way to speed up some processes.
So the next steps for us as a university is to continue on. Susan Orr and I, who's PVC Education, we're looking at future pedagogies at the moment and how digital can enhance all the gains we've made with block learning. That's a really big piece of work which we're talking around the university. If you're interested in that and you haven't been to hear one of our talks or got involved, then get in touch with Susan and I. We're launching a reference group in January to help us shape what the next steps for teaching, learning and digital will be at the university. So as you can see, it's an across-the-piece activity. And what's next? What's next around digital mindset? Well, was some repeatable things and then some big new things. So we're currently repeating the digital fluency audit at the moment. That'll be the third time that we have done that audit to test and see whether colleagues' confidence is growing. And we've got targets of where we want to get by 2027 with that. We're doing something called the Champions Recharge. So we're doing that a couple of times a year, to a little bit of investment, working with Hable, coming back just for a short period to keep investing in their skills, keep the champions positive, and show them that this isn't them on their own, we're supporting them. But the really exciting thing that we want to do is a student champions programme, piloted in our Faculty of Art, Design and Humanities, and we've just concluded a discovery piece around how we might do that. There are quite a lot of challenges about thinking of that, especially around the sustainability of that cohort piece. So that's work in progress. I don't have the answers entirely yet, but it's something that we're hoping to pilot next academic year with a couple of different approaches, one of which will probably be more academic-led with the students in support, and one which might be the other way around. And we're also very close to launching our Digital Skills Hub, which will just be a general sort of capability that anyone can access for sort of self-led learning and things like that. So that's what we're doing. That's who we are. Thank you for listening. We have got a few minutes left, so if you want, James, I'm happy to take questions.
Brilliant. Thanks ever so much, Tracey. I told you we had a great lineup, and we started off really well, so thank you. We are still running slightly behind schedule, but I think that was so insightful. It would be great to see if we do have any questions from the audience. If no one does, I've certainly got one, but does anyone want to put their hand up? Is there a hand over there? No? Okay.
Shocked you into silence.
It's hard to see with the lights. There may be hands that I just can't see, or people are just finding it really difficult to put their hand up because they're so tired. It's such a great journey through what you've talked about, and great to hear it as part of the sort of wider digital strategy and transformation piece. As many of us are going through a process where people are leaving the organisation, and that happens generally through the churn of staff anyway, how are you sort of maintaining that focus and that sort of level of engagement across the university as people inevitably leave, or that sort of churn of staff happens?
That's a really good point. So you'll see, I said we had 200 champions. We started with 200 champions. That was in sort of early 23. And we are actually now down to about 175 champions because people have left the organisation. So creating something self-sustaining is an ongoing piece of work. Now, I actually wonder, I don't have empirical evidence of this, but whether there might be some sort of Venn diagram between being the type of person that's got the get up and go to say, I'd love to be a digital champion, and being the type of person that's got the get up and go get yourself another job, because actually the proportion of champions that we've had that have left to go to another role outside De Montfort is higher than our overall university churn rate. So I think there's some sort of correlation going on there. But it is really important to me that this is self-sustaining. And of course, if we just continue on only with our current cohort, it will inevitably, for all those reasons, just go down and down and down. So we focused on the current cohort and recharging that current cohort. But very definitely our plans for later in this year is to launch a sort of, would you like to come and join us as a digital champion? And that would be a smaller, we won't be looking for 200. We might be looking for 20 or 30. But to be fair, we've also had people come and join and be really excited and say to me, how can I be a digital champion? And obviously at the moment the answer is, well, you can't. So we want to make it that you can be, because then it becomes a self-sustaining thing.
Fabulous. Fantastic. Well, thanks for talking us through that journey. Please, everybody, join me in thanking Tracey for that presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you.